The end of 2023 is upon us, and it's clear the Israel-Hamas war will continue into the new year.
As the humanitarian crisis worsens, former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren, has been in Tel Aviv witnessing the reality of the escalating war and with misinformation thriving on social media platforms. But we're here to ask him, what is the reality? Michael Oren joins us now from Tel Aviv this morning. Michael, we hope you are doing okay considering the circumstances right now, but we want you to start us off with the very latest on the Israel offensive expansion in Gaza. We're getting some reports that Israel's targeting some refugee camps. Want to know the reasoning behind that.
Okay, good day. Happy New Year to you all. Welcome to my bomb shelter. It looks like a library behind you. This is actually a bomb shelter. We're still getting rockets here in Tel Aviv. A couple of days ago, we had 30 rockets fired over this neighborhood, so we have to spend time in these bomb shelters. Yes, Israel's expanding its offensive, or rather its counteroffensive, in Gaza, and it has to. Hamas is deeply, deeply embedded behind and under these civilian neighborhoods. When we say about refugee camp, it's not a tent. These are actual neighborhoods. These are sections of the cities that are densely built up, and underneath them there are hundreds of miles. It's hard to imagine hundreds of miles of tunnels that go down hundreds of feet. It's a city beneath a city. So the Hamas actually uses the entire city, and not just its inhabitants, as a human shield. And since Israel has to defeat Hamas, there's actually no choice to it. And we all understand that, by the way. It's close to a national consensus that if we don't defeat Hamas, Hamas will come back and do it again. That's what the Hamas leaders say they're going to do. They don't make any attempt to sort of hide that. And we have hundreds of thousands of people who are homeless. They can't go back to their homes. So we have to defeat Hamas. And so there's really no way to do this other than to go into these neighborhoods and to ask the population, urge the population to move out of the combat zone. I know it's, it is a horrible situation. There's no great answer to it, but it's better to have the population move than to have them be caught in a crossfire and have them be used as human shields by Hamas.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, that footage there. It's almost like the subway system here in New York City, except they're fighting from that. I do want to ask you, though, because Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu seems to be losing support. However, he is refusing a ceasefire, which the majority of Israelis support. You've been very vocal about this ceasefire and why it is not an option. Maybe you could explain to our viewers one more time as to why that doesn't work for Israel.
Well, you have to distinguish between a temporary ceasefire that would enable an exchange of hostages, to get some of the hostages back. We had several ceasefires before. Hamas is now refusing to do this. One of the fears here is that the reason they're refusing to do it is they won't let those hostages go who have been abused, including sexually abused. And they're just saying no now. But a ceasefire that ends the war, what does that mean? It means Hamas gets away with mass murder. It means Israel loses, and I mean loses big time. Not only will the hundreds of thousands of Israelis not be able to go back to their homes, but we'll have absolutely no deterrence. And again, Hamas will attack again and again. And not just Hamas. It's Hezbollah in the north. It's Iran. All of our enemies will understand that they can hit us with impunity. And when we go to defend ourselves, the world will slap a ceasefire on us. We'll still tie our hands. So this is really a matter of life and death for the state of Israel.
And Michael, we know that Israeli officials have said as recently as this morning that de-radicalization of the Palestinian community is key to a peaceful resolution here, but there's also growing concerns for many in the international community that the continued bombings, the civilian casualties, the destruction of these neighborhoods is actually deepening the hatred from many Palestinians. Realistically, in 2024, where do we go from here?
I hear this quite often, you might imagine. And my initial reaction was, if in World War II, the United States said, well, we're not going to bomb Nazi Germany because we're creating more Nazis, America never would have won World War II. And my own experience has been that Arab countries, Arab populations have gone to war against us repeatedly. We have beaten them repeatedly. And those Arab countries, many of them have made peace with us now because they realize that war is not the way to guarantee a future for their children and grandchildren. Most recently, if you look at the news, the anger of the Palestinian civilian population hasn't been directed at Israel. It's been directed at Hamas. And so far that Hamas actually opened fire on a crowd of Palestinian civilians the other day and killed one because they're accusing Hamas of having wrecked their lives and having brought this war upon them. And now having stolen all the food, Hamas has been stealing the aid that Israel has been moving into Gaza. So there's no love lost between this population and Gaza.
And Michael, I know our time is short here, but we've also seen reports that the Israeli military has certainly suffered losses and certainly suffered injuries here, but there's also reports that somewhere in the range of 20% of those have been the result of friendly fire between these Israeli soldiers. Does that show the complexity on the ground here of what people are dealing with? What do you make of that?
Well, I'm an old soldier. I've spent some 35 years in the military and fought in several wars, and I'll tell you 20% is the average. And a friendly fire incident is about the average in any war for any army. But it goes up sharply when you're fighting in a densely built up, dusty, dark environment where everything is booby-trapped. Everything. The bricks are booby-trapped. The cats and the roosters are booby-trapped. And soldiers get very, very nervous, especially if they've been fighting in combat for a long time. We've had soldiers now in combat for 80 days. So it's that is definitely a serious problem in any combat environment, particularly in Gaza.
Before you go, could this have been prevented? I know there's some reports saying that Israel knew this was going to happen a year in advance. Could this have been prevented?
Well, I think in hindsight, the Monday morning quarterbacking, as we're coming up to the New Year's Day, it's a good, it's an apt metaphor. The Monday morning quarterbacking. I was in the Israeli government. And I was I was president meetings where people said, well, listen, Hamas can be paid off. We'll just give them a lot of Qatari money. We'll let 20,000 workers come in and give Hamas something to lose. And look, everyone was wrong. It was just wrong. We didn't understand the depth of the evil in Hamas. We're also afraid that the Israeli population was unwilling to pay the price of uprooting Hamas, which we figured around 500 soldiers would be lost doing that. And now, as you know, we're losing soldiers every single day. The Israeli society had to be convinced at a very deep level that there was really no choice, that this was a war of national survival. And that's why you don't see any opposition to this war out in the street. Zero.
Well, we do appreciate you joining us this morning. We wish you all the best there in Tel Aviv. Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., thanks for joining us.
Good day and good new year.